Imagine walking into your favorite restaurant, ordering your usual meal and taking one bite, only to spit it out because something tastes horrifically wrong. You complain to the manager, but what if I told you the kitchen wasn't the problem? What if the water you were drinking, cooking with, and making ice from had been contaminated for 2 weeks by something unspeakable? Today I'm going to tell you 3 true, disturbing stories about people who committed terrible crimes. And then, and as if that wasn't bad enough, I'll show you the insane lengths they went to in order to cover it all up. Some pretended to be heroes, some used ancient rituals, and one thought a ghost would do the dirty work for him. If you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, you've come to the right place. That's all we do here, and we upload 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week. So if that's your thing, please smash that like button, but instead of cherry sauce, douse it in ketchup. And subscribe with all notifications on so you never miss a story. Let's dive in. On the afternoon of December 1st, 1999, a middle-aged man named Li Hao was standing in the back office of his small restaurant in Dazhong County, southwestern China. Business had been good. The lunch rush was normal. But then, screaming, "Manager! Get out here now!" Li rushed into the dining area. A customer was slamming his fists on the table so hard that plates rattled. His face was red, veins bulging in his neck. "This food is disgusting. Even pigs wouldn't eat it." "Are you trying to poison me?" Li apologized. He bowed. He said the meal was free. But here's the thing. That was the 10th complaint that day. 10 different customers, 10 different dishes, one identical complaint. The food tasted rancid. By the time the last customer stormed out, Li's normally packed restaurant was completely empty. He marched to the kitchen, flung open the door, and yelled at the chef, "You better have a good explanation or you're fired." The chef put down his knife calmly and said, "It's not my fault. I noticed it too. All ingredients are fresh, recipes unchanged. But here's the weird part. I talked to other chefs in the area. Same problem, everywhere. Something's wrong with everyone's food." The next morning, Li met with other restaurant owners. They compared notes, and they realized something chilling. They all bought water from the same supplier. So the supplier sent an employee named Yang Guiyao to inspect the water tower. Yang hiked up a steep rocky path. He climbed a rusty metal ladder. He opened the concrete storage building's door. Inside was pitch black. He pulled out his flashlight. No rats, no insects? But he saw something else. A large canvas bag, in a place where nothing should be. Yang reached out, poked the bag. Something rolled out. For a second, his brain couldn't process it. Then it did. A decomposing human head. For 2 full weeks, every restaurant in the area had been cooking with water tainted by a rotting corpse. Police later determined the body belonged to a man from a nearby town. He had been robbed and murdered by 3 members of an organized crime group. They threw his body into the water tower to hide the evidence. But the evidence didn't hide. It floated, it rotted, it seeped into every meal, every drink, every ice cube. The 3 men were arrested, found guilty, and sentenced to death. Li Hao never reopened his restaurant. He later said, "Every day I imagine how many people ate from that water, and I feel sick." On the evening of March 5th, 1958, a 22-year-old man named Qasim bin Osman was eating dinner in his small home in what is now Malaysia. He was a bomo, a spiritual healer, well respected in town. Suddenly, frantic pounding on his door, 4 men stood outside. One named Kaur stepped forward. "My wife disappeared last night. I searched all day. Please, you're our only hope." Qasim felt uncomfortable. He healed the sick. He broke spells, but he'd never found a missing person. Still, he agreed to try. Qasim invited them inside. He brought out a large bowl filled with charcoal and matches. He lit the charcoal. Then he did something strange. He leaned his head over the bowl and inhaled the smoke deeply. Again, until he was lightheaded on the verge of passing out. And right before losing consciousness, an image flashed in his mind. A vast light green field, stretching forever. Qasim snapped his head up. I know where to go. 15 minutes later, they stood in a rice paddy on the edge of town. Identical to his vision, they searched. Under a pile of straw, they found Kaur's wife, covered in blood, dead. Police officer J.C. Sabui took the case. He interviewed Kaur, the husband. Kaur said his wife went for a late-night walk alone, unusual, and never returned. All her jewelry was missing. Maybe a robbery. Sabui was suspicious, but after 4 days of searching Kaur's home and background, nothing, no evidence, no jewelry, no witnesses. Desperate, Sabui did something he never thought he'd do. He went back to the shaman. We need your help again, Sabui said. The jewelry is still missing. Qasim hesitated. Then he agreed. Again he lit the charcoal. Again he inhaled until he nearly collapsed. Then he stood up without a word and walked out the door. Sabui followed. Qasim walked through town, stopping in front of house after house, staring for a few seconds, then moving on. Hours passed. Sabui was losing patience. Then Qasim stopped in front of one particular house, pointed, said 4 words. The jewelry is here. Sabui looked at the house. His blood ran cold. It was Qasim's own house. Police searched the house. Under the floorboards, they found Kaur's wife's missing jewelry. Qasim broke down and confessed. That night, the victim had been walking near his home. He attacked her, killed her, stole her jewelry and hid her body in the rice paddy. But then he made a fatal mistake. He thought that if he helped find the body, he would look innocent. When police came back for a second favor, his ego couldn't say no, and his own vision led them right to his front door. Qasim bin Osman was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. At 8 a.m. on August 22, 1974, a young man named Liu Fan sat on a long wooden bench inside a public mortuary in Hong Kong. Beside him were a dozen family members. In front of them, an open wooden coffin. Inside lay the body of his older sister, Liu Fumin, 34 years old. This was supposed to be a time for private mourning, but Liu Fan couldn't grieve, because surrounding them were more than a dozen newspaper reporters, taking notes, snapping photos, treating his sister like a headline, not a human being. 1 week earlier, Fumin had been found strangled to death in a hotel room. But strangulation wasn't the only crime. The killer had removed her face, her eyebrows, her eyelids, her nose, her lips, all cut off. In the open coffin without eyelids, her glassy eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. Without lips, her teeth formed a horrible, morbid grin. The police had no suspects. The case was cold, and the media was having a field day. Liu Fan was furious, but he had a plan, a desperate, crazy plan. In ancient Taoist tradition, there is a ritual believed to release a murdered person's spirit so it can hunt down and take revenge on its killer. All you need is a knife in the victim's coffin. Liu Fan bought a large knife, hid it in his jacket pocket, waited for the funeral. At the final goodbye, he walked to the front of the room. Everyone thought he was going to weep over his sister's body. Instead, he pulled out the knife, raised it high, and stabbed it into his sister's wooden coffin. People screamed. Reporters snapped photos wildly. Guards rushed him. But Liu Fan had already done what he came to do. He whispered an ancient chant, then surrendered peacefully. Police let him go. They assumed grief had made him snap. The next evening, a policewoman was doing her regular night patrol in a neighborhood not far from the mortuary. She glanced down an alleyway and stopped. A man was lying on the ground in a crumpled heap. Blood everywhere, limbs twisted, clearly broken. He looked like he had fallen from a great height. She called an ambulance and knelt beside him. He was barely alive. "Who did this to you?" she asked. The man raised a trembling hand and pointed to the building next to them. "A woman. A woman pushed me." Then he lost consciousness. Officers searched the rooftop. No woman, no struggle, no evidence of anyone. At the hospital, they asked the man to describe his attacker. This is what he said, word for word. "She had these huge, horrible, glassy eyes. No eyebrows, no eyelids. Her nose was gone. Her lips were gone. She had this awful, toothy grin, like a corpse." The policewoman froze. That description matched the dead woman's face exactly. The woman who had been buried yesterday. The man in the hospital bed was describing a ghost. Under intense questioning, the man broke down and confessed. He had proposed marriage to Liu Fumin. She rejected him. Humiliated and enraged, he followed her to a hotel room, strangled her, and then, in a fit of sick revenge, cut off her facial features. After the murder, he heard about Liu Fan's ritual. He laughed at first, superstitious nonsense, but that night he said he was walking home when he saw her, standing right in front of him. No face, no eyelids, no lips. She chased him to the roof, and she pushed. The killer was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Liu Fan was never charged. He told reporters, "My sister's spirit took revenge herself. I just helped a little." 3 crimes, 3 cover-ups, 3 impossible ways the truth came out. 1 through bad-tasting food, 1 through a shaman's arrogance, 1 through an ancient ritual and a ghost who refused to rest. Everyday life is full of moments you plan for, and moments that just happen when you least expect them. Whether it's part of your routine or something unexpected, the truth has a way of surfacing. Sometimes through the water you drink, sometimes through smoke, and sometimes through a spirit pushing its killer off a roof. What did you think of these stories? Have you ever heard of anything like this? Let me know in the comments. And remember, we have hundreds more videos waiting for you. If you want a personal recommendation, check out this one right here. Until next time, take care and sleep with the lights on.